Welcome to Talkin Tires, the podcast that delves deep into the world of tires. Join us as we explore everything from the science behind the manufacturing to the latest innovations in tire recycling. Our aim is to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of tires, including how they work, how to maintain them, and how to dispose of them responsibly. Whether you're a seasoned mechanic, curious car enthusiast, or an avid recycler, Talkin Tires is the perfect podcast for anyone who wants to learn about the essential component of the modern vehicle and heavy equipment. So buckle up and join us for an informative and engaging journey into the world of tires. All right, here's our first episode of Talkin Tires. I'm Craig, the president of Tire Reclaim, a division of United Metals, and really this is not about that. This is about tires, new tires, used tires, rubber, waste practices. I mean, basically sustainability, anything that has to do with tires, this is what we're going to talk about. So, first thing I wanted to do was get a man in here that has taught me a lot about tires and how to process tires, and we're talking new tires now. So just want to go ahead and jump right in and introduce Chase Cavanaugh, the Vice President of Operations for Commercial Tire right here based in Meridian, Idaho. So Chase, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. So, everybody gives me advice. Your first podcast, what do you talk about? And immediately I thought of you, Chase. And, not just the experience, but inside product knowledge, things like that. I mean, I'd say most times we get on the phone, we talk about work a little bit. We talk about life a lot. And a lot of similarities in, how we approach our day. We have a lot of aggression for new business, right? And practices and procedures and efficiency. So absolutely. I really wanted to have you here about that and the work-life balance. That's really important too, right? Yep. So married 19 years. So
Why do you do it?
Yeah. So the 3 children, Claire 14, Kate 12, and Cole's 10, right? Yeah. So the family aspect, I want you to touch on that a little bit today. And education, give you your letters behind your name, bachelor's degree of science in business administration, which worked out for you, right? Because you're administrating a lot of business these days, so that's good. Different hobbies, you noted you like the outdoors, fly fishing, things like that. So I don't want to get into too many details here because I want to talk to you and get to know you a little bit, but why don't we start about how you would describe yourself in commercial tire?
Well, talk a little bit about commercial tire first.
Okay.
The organization's been around since 1968. Our founder, Bob Schwingfeller, started it up, kind of a one-man band in a truck kind of a deal, and, grew it over the next 50-plus years to what it is today, which is 55 locations in 4 states, with 850 employees and, growing and more every day, So, kudos to Bob. I mean, he was a visionary. He understood the business. Today he still understands how things get done. He's very, very smart. And I appreciate working for someone like that. He's a great man. So
sounds familiar.
Yeah, his son Trent is our president. Born and raised in the organization, has done every job in the company, start to finish, and another great leader, someone you can really go to and get things figured out. They're action-oriented guys, which fits me perfectly. I like action. I like to drive towards things, and so that kind of leads into who I am. So I've been with the company about 15 years. Been in the tire business a little longer than that. But just being here through a lot of change. Since I've been here, the company's more than doubled in size, almost tripled in size. We were a $78 million a year company when I came in the mid. So
let me slow you down. Let me slow you down a little bit. So right then, that day, right, you were coming from and going into what position with Commercial Tire?
So I came from an outside sales role at another company, not in the tire business, and came to Commercial Tire as they were like, hey, this guy.
B2B, business to business.
Business to business, outside sales, and they're like, hey, we'll see what this guy's got. They threw me on the front counter of a store. And so that's how I started. I was at the store level. Yep.
Yeah, and just green, and I'm sure there were people there, key people that impacted your career? I mean, from there on, I mean, you've been there 15 years. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So you liked something.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you remember? Can you think anything about the dynamic of what about Commercial Tire that you liked so much?
Well, I liked the family feel of the organization. I mean, it was at that time, I think we had about 30 locations, 32 maybe. But it's still it's a small company. It was guys that are like-minded that wanted to work hard. You just every day we woke up and you went to it, and that's a pretty cool atmosphere to be a part of.
Right.
The tire business is. I don't know if people believe this or not, but I see it as a very smart business. There's a lot of really great people, and one thing I noticed right away is that Bob and the management of the organization really wanted everybody to have a real understanding of how to do business. Like it was stuff I learned in business school. They were teaching everybody. They were teaching everybody the profit and loss statements and how what you do affects the bottom line.
Really,
and all management levels, all salesmen. I mean, it didn't matter where you were. You had a general understanding of what the business was all about, and that's not something you see.
Yeah, that is
in business.
That's impressive. So that takes a lot of confidence as an operator to show that kind of transparency to anybody that wants to see it. That's to me. Well, I wonder, because I have here in my notes that Commercial Tire is employee owned.
Yeah.
I wonder if that played into that. So that mentality of, hey, these are my people. They're on the streets, doing this job. I need them to understand what happens to the bottom line if we do this or if we do that. Do you think that played into that?
Absolutely.
And can you talk a little bit about being employee owned when that happened?
So in 2019, November of 2019, we became employee owned. And, Bob could have sold the business to anyone. I mean, I think there were some major players.
We know some other major names that have sold out to private equity and
exactly.
things.
Yeah, major players could have done it. I think he had, I'm not going to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure he had other people talking to him about it. And he made the decision that the people who brought him to the dance were the ones that should benefit from that. I think it's smart. And it also maintained the feeling and the management of the organization. It didn't just get handed off to someone else, right? And I think that's part of his legacy was to keep kind of keep things going the way it's always been, which was good. It's been growing. It's things are good. We have a growth mindset, and I don't think he wanted that to change. I think he wanted to see that and have that be a part of it.
And putting it forward, I've noticed. So it's on the front of your buildings a lot. It's on the glass. It's on your shirt right now. So it's something that you're pretty proud of.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, it's only 5% of companies in the United States are even able to be employee owned. So it's highly regulated. So you have to be financially stable enough to make that happen. The company has to be able to
makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
I mean you're going out. You
I don't know where the regulation comes in so heavily, but
what it is you employee-owned companies. There's tax benefits about being employee-owned, and so there's a lot to it. You have to be solvent. The company has to be able to financially make
I'm sure
it through.
there's a firm you've hired.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
or two, or four.
I went to Idaho is a very heavy employee-owned state. Like, I mean, there's a lot. The big names: Winco Foods.
That's the first one I think of.
Franklin Building Supply, Norco, Commercial Tire. I mean, there's lots of them. Treasure Valley Refrigeration.
A lot of people don't know Winco is, if I get this right, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, California, Oregon. That's where the name came from, right? Winco.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So same footprint, I guess, is what I'm getting
similar,
at.
Very similar.
Very similar
very
footprint.
Similar.
Yeah. So maybe it's a Northwest trend.
And they're great. And so we go to convention. And we spent a lot of time with those guys at convention this last year, and they've been an ESOP for 30 years,
a long time,
and more, 38 years, I think.
I read an article one time. It's the first real knowledge of an ESOP that I have is because I read an article that said your grocer who's checking your groceries out could be a millionaire. So I had to read that, and I started reading it through there, and I'll be darned, somebody that's been there a long time. Mm-hmm. Is a millionaire checking out your groceries and happy and smiling and
doing
the owner of the company.
Yeah, doing their job.
That's pretty awesome.
It's a pretty cool benefit for the employee, and there's a mindset change, and it takes a while to kind of change the culture away from kind of the founder's culture to the employee-owned culture, okay, right? Because you're trying to teach your folks that they need to have an ownership mindset. And so, we're 3 years into it. We're in our fourth year. We're
of the ESOP.
And so it's changing. I mean, you can feel it. You can feel that it's palpable with the people. It's hard to explain to a 22-year-old what employee ownership looks like, but
I wouldn't have understood, or at least I wouldn't have understood the value of it,
And once they get it, they get it. They're like, okay, so we're kind of constantly changing on how we communicate that. We actually won a national award for a large company for internal communications of our ESOP. So we did a lot of marketing behind that. And, we're pretty proud of that. And it's funny, myself and our CFO got up and accepted that award. And all these people come up and they're like, how'd you get, man, you guys are real creative, da-da-da-da. And him and I are probably the two least creative people on the planet. So we're like, well, actually, it was our marketing team.
Good. Yes.
Adrian Rodriguez, give a shout out to Adrian. He did a great job.
Did you hear that, Sky? That was a shout out to the marketing team.
Our marketing team's great, and they're a big piece of that. And Adrian, he did a great job, and that was his award to win. And I wish he could have been there to accept it because it wasn't us. It was definitely him. But it's cool to be recognized as kind of leading in that. And we're 4 years into it, and there's people that have been doing it for 50, 60 years
that's awesome.
That are questioning, hey, how do you guys get this communication out?
Which says a lot about your company, right? That when you take something on, you take it on full. And it's not, a half effort, if you will. And so that's fantastic. The employee knowledge of just how business runs. Certainly you're not sharing P&L statements and things like that, but do you feel like there's still that connection of your managers, maybe your store managers, of, hey, we need to do this, to be profitable. We need to do these things.
We share our P&Ls with our employees. I mean, if you're at a location, they have meetings around it, so they understand.
Okay, so that's held.
Yeah, we do it. Yeah, we do it. It's not.
So they're knowledgeable on that, and then product knowledge. Where does that come in? Do you guys do training on tires? What's coming down the pipe?
Yes.
Like
anytime we do a rollout, we do a training across our board. We bring people in. We usually bring in kind of key stakeholders, guys that, and a lot of times when people say that, they think management and they think whatever. No. We're talking about the people that are going to make a difference in the location. There might be one or two guys you're like, hey, these guys are the guys. These guys are, whether they're a tire guy or they're a salesman or whatever, these guys are leaders. These are the guys are the ones that'll kind of get everybody on board and so we train them and then we roll it out to the locations, and then we usually have some follow-up training.
So is that I know Cooper Tire is one of your manufacturers. So what are some of the manufacturer names? And I'm sure they have reps.
Oh, yeah.
So they're coming, and are they in that training? What does that look like?
So Bridgestone Firestone, I would say, is our chief partner.
I only say Cooper because I saw them on one of the buildings.
Cooper's one that's been around for a long time. They're a good partner of ours as well. Yokohama is a big partner. So that's kind of on the commercial and retail side. We've got some new partners, Patagonia Tire, which is a great tire product through Milestar. And we've got some different we have others, there's others, but I would say those are kind of our top tier products. And it's good to have good partners. When you go through some turmoil like we just did over the last 3 years, it's pretty important to make sure that you're married to someone who believes in what you're doing and will kind of hold you above and beyond some of the other folks.
Well, they really control your flow, right? So they're good partners to have and keep happy and keep a good symbiotic relationship.
Well, we got with Bridgestone Bob's been a Bridgestone dealer since the late '60s. So we got into bed with Bridgestone when a lot of people in the United States wouldn't. So there was still a hangover from World War II. Bridgestone's a Japanese company. There was still a lot of that, and Bob, he saw past all that.
And they're up against the big boys.
Yeah, Michelin. At that time they weren't as big as they are now. Now they're number one or two, depending on what report you look at. Michelin versus Bridgestone, they're typically the top two that you see kind of go back and forth every other year. And they've been a great company to be married to. So
that's great.
We and the other ones as well. Yokohama and Cooper have been been great vendors of ours for a lot of years.
So I was glad to see that you had a sales background. I'm kind of an old sales dog. I still get ethered up or excited, on every single sales call, conversation, and whatnot. So I want to just bring me in that room a little bit. So are you talking about new tires that are coming out? Maybe it was an old tread pattern that's come back. I mean, I don't even know how that conversation happens, or we've got a new snow line coming out in January.
So we'll move with the market a little bit on tire product as far as what's out there. But the tire manufacturers are very cutting edge. So they're constantly bringing new models, making things better. I mean, Bridgestone itself spends, I can't remember the number, it's like $2.4 billion a year on R&D. So, I mean, they're big on changing and growing product lines. And, I mean, they sell golf balls. I mean, how are you in the golf ball business and the tire business, right? They're in the hose business. They do a lot of different things. So, you look at it from that perspective. So they're changing a lot. So that drives change throughout the whole industry, right? Everybody's got to be innovative.
It starts from the top.
It does. I mean, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, if you had a pickup tire that lasted you 35,000 miles, you were like excited, right?
Right.
Now you're upset if that same product doesn't last 65, 70,000 miles.
Yeah.
Well, what changed?
Right.
Well, the innovation. I mean, the product changed. Using synthetics versus natural rubbers and the mix and blend of those two things, and they're tweaking it, right? And they're tweaking it to get the value out of the product to the customer.
Absolutely.
And also to make sure that they don't last too long. I mean, there's got to be a little engineered
I'm
obsolescence.
not even going to go into that.
Yeah, but I believe
I've heard there's
washers and dryers.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
I've heard there's tires that'll last forever, but maybe that's
not forever. But you wouldn't have any traction. There is a mix. We use synthetic rubber compound. Natural rubber is harder, and if you make a tire completely out of natural rubber, it'll last forever. But you get zero traction, so they're not safe.
Gotcha.
So that's why they blend them. That's why they use.
Did you hear that, folks? The great misnomer right there. So you just got it answered from the tire guy at Commercial Tire that.
Well, think
they
about it.
could
like
make it, but there'd be no traction.
Well, think about it.
So hard.
Think about it.
Sense.
If you used a eraser to erase pencil, and that eraser was really, really stiff and hard.
Well, we've all been there. They get old, and it just spreads it around.
The really soft one erases the best. Oh, yeah. But you have the pink stuff all over your desk when you're done, right? So it's a mix of those two things. It's the same. That is rubber.
I love that.
Lightly vulcanized rubber. That is what that is. So it's the same. It's that idea.
Gotcha.
The tire. I mean, you want a tire product that lasts to what it says it's going to last to,
right?
And you want it to be, but you want it to keep your family safe, and you want it to go down the road. You want it to be quiet,
right?
And you want it to be smooth, and you want it all these things. So.
Personally not getting any younger, and I keep saying these things that make me sound old, but I have literally seen tires advance. I mean, I've put 40,000 miles on a set of tires you couldn't even tell right now.
Right.
And that's just rotating them properly, coming and seeing Tom and, getting set up. And that's really, you're doing your part as a consumer, right? I rotated them. I said I was going to do. And when I did, and I guess shocks and struts. I mean, that's probably something you should talk about because I know you told me one time, you're like, that is a huge part of our business because I didn't even realize, obviously, I'm on the tire side of things. So,
well, in 50,000 miles, a set of shocks goes through like 2 million actions.
Right, let me finish that thought. So the reason I brought that up now is because that tread life also has a lot to do with the mechanics of the vehicle.
It does. So as your shocks and everything wear, and it's kind of like a slow death, right? You're driving, you don't know it's wearing, it's all happening. But there's so many components that are interlinked in your vehicle, right? So you have a set of shocks that goes bad, and you're like, okay, yeah, well, that's just comfort. It's really not just comfort. What happens is that as you go to brake, so 80% of the vehicle's weight moves to the front of the vehicle when you get into an emergency braking situation. It could be up to, and if you're turning at the same time, like to avoid something, you could have up to 80% of the vehicle's weight, or about 70 on one tire. So the more that weight shifts forward, the easier it shifts forward, the more the center of gravity moves forward in your vehicle, which means the more weight goes to the front. So if your shocks are wore out, that's what's holding the vehicle stable. So as that happens, you have to be aware. The softer the shocks, the more road. And you've seen that. You see the cars that are going down the road, they're bouncing, they're doing weird stuff. Okay. Not only that is an issue, but it also puts all that braking on the front axle. So if you start running through front brakes a lot, you know your shocks are bad. on the tire side of that, well, the tires aren't being held to the ground the way they're supposed to be. So they start hopping and bouncing. You start seeing check wear. You start seeing what we call heel toe on the shoulder.
We're seeing
shoulder. You start seeing that. Well, that's because the other components are wore out. Alignments, it starts wearing front end.
Well, that's the obvious one, right?
Yeah.
We all have seen the one tire, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, well, that's not always just the alignment, right? But there's other things there, and then
Well, like you said, they all work together, right? I mean, right down to the bushing.
It makes sense. It's all a component.
Yeah.
And when the car is brand new, everything drives nice and it's perfect. And then
flat,
100,000 miles comes around, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're just upselling us on shocks." You're like, "No, listen, your shocks are smoked." And I literally I bought a used pickup. I'm kind of a used pickup kind of guy, but
me too.
I went and bought a used pickup here just recently, and it was a nice truck, Ford Platinum, 2018.
I can handle this color.
Yeah, it was white. I was like, that's cool. I like white. 50,000 miles on it, right? And I took it into the shop, and because I'm a tire guy, I got to lift it a little bit, and I got to put the wheels and tires on
leveled.
it. Yeah, I leveled it up, and put some wheels and tires on it. It looked like an old guy truck. I'm not that old yet, so I'm like, okay, cool. My guy comes to me and goes, hey, and the lift I ordered, it's 3-inch. It was just a little bit. The lift I ordered comes with new shocks and all this stuff, right? And so my guy comes to me, he's like, hey, man, good thing you got those new shocks with that lift. I was like, oh, well, what's the deal? And he's like, they're smoked. 50,000 miles.
On a new pickup.
The guy who owned the truck before me was 81 years old. So, he was just driving. He wasn't doing anything crazy. He wasn't 4-buying or anything, and this was
insane.
And he's like, yeah, 50,000 miles. And that's
what we
tell. That's what we tell people, though.
Little do you know that 81-year-old was going through the desert. He's 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's one of those things, but it's when we sell that, when we tell folks, we tell them, hey, this is a recommendation,
right?
And it's something to think about, And so, but yeah, it's all this works together.
Yes.
Right,
So you've got quite a bit of technical labor to maintain there
Absolutely.
As well. So what kind of computer software is those guys are having to learn all these days, right?
Yeah, So that's what we kind of tell everybody is today's mechanical world. Really, you need to be like a software engineer. I mean, most vehicles have upwards of 60 to 200 computers on them. I mean, depending, they're little, but but there's a lot of them, and so a lot of the issues you see in vehicles aren't mechanical issues; they're electronic issues. And so, all of our facilities we run Tier 1 scan tools. We have to just to get in and make. You got to get in and get things opened up and get them working so you can see if the continuity is good, if they're So
the famous check engine light, right? People come to you with check engine lights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you got to plug that in.
Got to plug it in.
There's no other way of knowing.
Like you used to be able to stick your head in the engine compartment and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, your Dubenflotcher's smoked," and everybody's like, "Yeah, okay, cool."
It always reminds me of Seinfeld, which I quote way too much, but Jerry's got his regular guy Putty that does his mechanic works, and he's telling George a story, and George goes, "Well, Putty wouldn't lie to you," and he says, "Oh, it's not Putty." He's like, "Well, of course he's lying to you." He can tell you your Johnson rod is bad. It's like, how are you going to know?
Your blinker fluid needs to be changed.
Yeah, exactly.
You
can go online now, GTS, Google that stuff, right? And there's a coupon for blinker fluid, so you can really get your kids now. You just say, here, take that in and get.
The biggest part is about making sure our people are trained, making sure our customers understand. We try to bring a different level of communication to them so they can they understand. I talk to everybody. In the world of safety, it's really tough because everybody's like, "Oh, do we want our customers in the shop? Do we want them, in there seeing stuff?" And I tell people, I'm like, keep them safe, stop the work around them, but show and tell.
Yeah, windows.
Show the customer.
I noticed you have a lot of windows.
We have windows in all of our shops so people can see their car being worked on. But we want to take our customers in and show them what we're seeing, because seeing is believing, right?
Like, old parts, is that a policy of yours? Do you show old parts?
Yeah, we'll bring old parts. Yeah, we save everything if people want to take a look at it. Some people just don't care.
I'm just old. I'm a weirdo
but
like that.
But it is. People are like, I want to see my brake pads. Yeah, and you're like, oh, here you go.
$680 for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's real deal.
Yeah, it's real.
I just had my wife's brakes done on her car last week, and same thing for me. It's no different. Our stuff wears out too.
Right. All right, so I think I want to get into just your enjoyment, and I know as VP of operations, a lot of things have changed. So you went from zone regional manager, right? So talk about that transition a little bit and what's going on with
Yeah, it was, as you come up through the company, we're big into people that work for us and, promoting them and growing the company from within. And so, I was a zone manager for several years, which is a regional operations manager for us. I mean,
and you were in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, Treasure Valley and Magic Valley were my two areas. And did that, and this position, we created this position. We didn't have it. As a company, when you start growing, you have to be able to scale your growth, right? And so at that time, we had four zone managers, and we decided to put a different layer of management in, what we call market managers, and they manage 3 to 6 locations. They're the managers'
day-to-day operations,
yes.
Payroll.
Yeah, they're
ordering
the
parts.
manager's direct report, right? So they're the guys making sure things are going right, and we talk about training. They're the ones that are spurred with making sure the folks are trained and they're driving towards that. Mentorships, making sure the store managers know and understand what's coming through the organization.
I'm just going to shoot stuff out. So communication points, you're doing email, you're doing text, you're doing group text.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Oh, yeah, any way you can possibly, I would say it's probably in our world still, email and Teams meetings.
Teams.
Yeah, that's a new thing that came around. I'm an old dog, so I get irritated by the Teams. I'm starting to like them.
Well, and I'm starting to think that it's all the automatic, it was already on when you sent the invite. Have you done that?
Now, yeah,
all of them are already preset. Yeah. So
unless you put a location.
It just started, exactly. Then it just started happening, so then now everybody's, I see more and more people accepting Teams meetings, which is great. It's nice to see people's face. I talk about, and I really wanted to go a whole podcast without mentioning COVID, but there are some good things that came out of it.
Yeah, I think we got a lot more efficient with COVID, and that was because we would, we're the tire business especially, and I'm sure a lot of industries are, but we're really a face-to-face business. Mm-hmm. We like to see our people, talk to them, be able to shake their hands, see their response, whatever, but we got really involved in Teams. We've actually backed off probably how many Teams meetings we're having. I mean, during COVID, you were like, it was like every meeting you had
to.
Yeah, you had to. And now we're kind of, I think we're safe and sane with it. We're not going to blow our hands off. We have enough Teams meetings that we can communicate weekly, but we're back to having our get-togethers, and because I think that's so valuable in business to be able to talk creatively with your people and make sure that you're really on the same page. It's not just no, they got your face turned off. You don't get to see them on the meeting.
I love the blurry background, so you could be anywhere.
I always put one like I'm in Maui or something.
Yeah.
Like in my,
is that what that? I just figured you were always in Maui. You had a house there.
I really like that. It makes me feel like that's where I'm at. So
email, text, Teams. Those are good communication tools for you guys. And then you get around.
Yeah, so that's a big thing is our market managers especially, they're face to face. I mean, our area directors, that was kind of the next step, right? So we had what we call zone managers, and then we put in market managers, which was a layer kind of between those guys. We renamed our zone managers area directors. We broke the company into three sections, and those guys manage those 3 sections. So each one of them has 17 or so locations that they're over, and 3 to 5 market managers depending on geography. And so
I like it.
Yeah, those guys. So it's a scalability. Scalability. So if we decide to go plop 5 locations in Montana, which someday that'll happen, but if we decide to do that, that area director can shift and put a market manager in there, and he'll be able to help manage that guy. And,
back to that scalability.
Yeah, exactly. So wherever we grow, we're going to grow. We put 4 new locations in the end of 22 and the first part of 23. So we're doing it. It's no joke.
Well, I think it's great to hear. That scalability is a word thrown around, but it's really just growth, right? Yep. And to see, I'm going to say, an American company with a bunch of good American freedom-loving men and women out there working hard to advance commercial tire. I see the guys there. I've learned a lot about, in Talkin Tires, I've learned a lot about tire men, and you guys work your tail off. And I say you guys because you started that, right? You got to throw a lot of rubber. You got to get up at night when when others don't. You got to, then there might be a truck driver on the side of the road trying to get home. I mean, and he's tired and
they're in the danger zone.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think it's probably one of the most thankless jobs that's out there. The reality of it is that there's a semi-truck trapped on the side of the road, and it isn't moving until a tire guy shows up to get it going.
And cars flying by
and
people not changing lanes.
Everybody sees the videos, right?
Yeah, all those idiots out there. And I'm sure you guys have had, scary times and scary moments. Yeah. So I appreciate the efforts of you and your men and, your whole company across the board, just as a partner of Tire Reclaim. But beyond that, just the relationships that I've met, some really good people there, you and Lee, of course, and Trent, and just everybody through the organization that I work closely with, and then, going right into the store managers and getting to know them and what, their needs and pains are. And everybody speaks highly of you and your, middle management throughold the whole organization. Yeah. So
we've got
kudos to you.
Yeah, we've got great people with lots of experience, and I challenge you to think about scalability in a different way, because it's on my mind, but it's something that we're actively doing. And I know people use that term, but what really scalability means to me is the organization having the people and the processes in place to maintain the business control as the company expands. So for what you do, it's the McDonald's thing, right? A McDonald's in Boise, Idaho is the same as a McDonald's in Iowa. It's the same as a McDonald's in Florida, right?
Which it's used a lot, but for a reason.
They did a really good job.
They did a good job of it.
They are a really great example of scalability. And so,
but I've heard a New Orleans Big Mac has a Creole sauce. So you have your little differences, nuances here and there.
I guarantee you, a commercial tire in Utah is a little different than a commercial tire in Boise. And a commercial tire in Yakima is a little different than the commercial tire in Boise. But the special sauces are still really similar. It's the bun's good and all that, but there might be a little tweak in there. But for the most part, we're very similar across the board. Same kind of people, same ideas, same values that drove.
Well, there's a lot of good quotes in this podcast, and that would be one of them on scalability. That was a really good description of what a successful, scalable company could look like.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
Again, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
Thanks, and have a great day, man.
Cool. Thank you.